All right. So good morning, everyone, or afternoon if you are with Paige in Spain or elsewhere around the world. My name is Lindsay Tjepkema, and I'm here with Paige McPheely, who is CEO and one of the co-founders of Base. We're going to talk today about all of the things that you didn't know that you could delegate to an EA, but you absolutely should. This is actually one of the conversations that Paige and I have had many times that blew my mind because I think that we all have some kind of preconceived notion about what an EA can and should do for you. And I think that it's pretty outdated as we're going to get into today. But we're doing these every week on Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern, where we're just talking about some of the dispelling myths about EAs and full disclosure, building in public, if you will. I've never had an EA before until just now, thanks to Paige, who has opened my eyes to the fact that I can and should and definitely will be getting some support. So hi, Paige.
Hello, and happy day number 2 of working with an
Yes, we're
EA,
here, day
right?
2 of 5, unless we get crazy and decide to do more. So let's talk about first and foremost, real quick, kind of who you are, who Base is. You've been doing this for just a short amount of time, right? Like a decade. So yeah, tell us about Base, and then we'll get into delegation.
Yes, so we are Base, and a very long story condensed. We started as remote executive assistant staffing back when remote work was not a thing. No one was really doing it. And really the only EAs that you could find were virtual EAs offshore, virtual assistants. So we just kind of found our little corner in the market and grew really fast through word of mouth. And then about halfway into our first decade, 5 years ago or so, we started a software company. And so we still have the staffing component. We still handpick EAs for our clients, but we also now give you EAs who are backed by our technology. And then we've also built a really smart matching software in the back end that, because we've been doing this, we see what works and what doesn't work. So now we rely on the data of the last 10 years to help us make sure that we're finding the right match. That's really, really important to us because so many EAs are great, but it's such a personal relationship that we spend a lot of time trying to make sure we get that bit right. So yes, we're a one-stop EA shop.
Yes. And again, as somebody who is going through this process right now with you, I can say it's been pretty fun to go through it and actually think about what I need and what would be really helpful and what would feel like a gift as opposed to, I'm just going to bring on a person. So it's pretty incredible, some of the different things that you can provide help with. So yes. So let's talk about that. Okay, so we talked last time about dispelling some of the myths and challenges and thoughts, sometimes even head trash, about why leaders like me talk themselves out of working with an EA. So if you missed that last time, we recorded it, and we can share a link to where that is. But we're going to be talking today about all the things that you can and should be delegating to an EA, but you never knew you could. So let's talk about first some of the thoughts that we typically have about who an EA is, what they do, and I think sometimes therefore why we think that that's not what we need. So I know for me, I think about like a secretary sitting outside of an old-timey office, typing and taking meetings, and I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. So what do you typically run into as far as what people think?
Yeah, there's a lot of outdated secretary, a little bit of gender, not a little bit, a lot of gender stereotype, a lot of just old assumptions. I find that most of us know the term executive assistant and we're familiar with it. But when we picture it, we're thinking maybe more Mad Men style era, and not somebody who can be a really smart strategic partner for you. And I think we also consider it to be a luxury and something that most of us don't deserve, especially if we're in a small, scrappy startup, or maybe we're a solopreneur, or maybe we're in a big company, but we're not the C-suite. And so, just kind of, you think of like a lady sitting outside of your office typing in a computer.
Yeah, or like a typewriter. Like, why do I picture typewriter? I don't know, but that's
You're not alone. And a lot of people come in, and we have these conversations all the time. People come to us, they know they need help. And the amount of times that people are surprised that an EA can do more than your calendar and your expenses and maybe some email, like, wait a second, they can build decks for me? That's a question we get all the time. But yes, I mean, it's usually people come in with this little narrow window and they're like, my schedule's not that busy, or I don't get that many emails, or I don't have expense reports, so I don't need an EA. Yeah, they're not alone if you feel that way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk. Obviously, I mean, this is what we're all going to get into is like how does that differ from what the EAs that come to your clients through base, what they typically end up doing?
Yeah. And if you think about a lever and the way that a lever amplifies strength, that's really what an EA can do. There's so much more than scheduling and administrative tasks. I think a great EA is a lot more like a secret weapon. They're there downstream amplifying your leverage, which means that your reach, your productivity, any of the impact that you're trying to have is you've got a greater probability of success because you've got this leverage amplifying the power that you're already bringing to your role. So a great EA, they understand you, they know where you're trying to go. It's not like what tasks do you need to do, but what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? What could you do if you had more time available to you? And so they're really seeing around corners, and they're anticipating your needs, they're solving problems, and they're there to take care of you, the human, not simply just take some tasks off your plate, which is what we see a lot when we look at outsourcing offshore VAs, and some of them are really fantastic, but you do tend to play more in the kind of task taking space rather than
Mm-hmm.
anticipating needs and seeing around corners.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're being very kind to some of the competition that you have. I mean, you've been doing this for 10 years, and there are since that time, lots of different services and companies have popped up um, that are advertised as really quick, easy, cheap support
Mm-hmm.
and cool. Like if you know exactly what you want, you have this one task that might be fine for you. But I know for me, when I was even at any time that I've thought about, hey, it would really be great to have some support, that's not what I needed. And as an example, I haven't even told you this yet, but I'm just getting started working with my EA from base. She's incredible. And one of the things that we just talked about in our kickoff last week was calendar. And I was like, I don't know. I'm open to it, but and it's funny because even our kickoff was like one part therapy, one part like kickoff. She's like, well, how about your calendar? I was like, I live from it and I breathe from it, and it's really weird and it's color coded my way, and it's not right, but it's all that I know, and I feel like she's like, well, what if we just started with at the beginning of every week we went through it and I just helped you like be accountable to the things that you wanted to do and hold space for the things that knew you needed to get done. And I was like, oh, yeah, that could be good. Yeah. So you mean not like scheduling meetings that I'm just going to go back and tell you that that's not a good time for me anyway? And she's like, no, just we can just
Yeah.
look at your calendar just the way it is, and I can help you be accountable. And I was like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that sounds great.
And our EAs and great EAs, they are kind of ninjas of understanding what does your ideal week look like? How are you best, or when are you best? How do you best spend your time and you're more productive? And it's a lot easier to be a gatekeeper for someone else than it is for yourself. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not out there having to say no because your time is already full and you're going to be stretching yourself too thin. But your EA, that generally have no problem with it. They're like, nope, sorry, the next slot that I can get you is a few weeks out. Take it or leave
Yeah.
it. And of course, they do it very respectfully. But I can't say no, and I can't protect my time the way that my assistant does that for me. And we do the same thing. I think we talked about this last week too. We start every day, and she asks me. It's an automated asynchronous check in. How are you feeling today? And that question, I stop and pause. I'm like, how am I feeling today? And then I talk about what did I accomplish since the last check in, and what's on my agenda, or what do I hope to accomplish. And usually my list is so long, so very long. And then she'll come back with me, and she knows we've already talked about how many hours of meetings that I have on my calendar. And we know we've done audits. We know where I start reporting back like, man, that was too much. I'm feeling really burnt out, or I'm feeling good, or wow, I forgot I had all this time to think. And so she knows the windows, and she actually helps me figure out when should I do these tasks that are hanging over my head. Some of them are
Mm-hmm.
big, some of them are quick, many of them she can do. It's just pretty darn amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing, I don't know if you ever feel this way, or I mean, please tell me that other people you work with feel this way so that I'm not the crazy one. But I kept finding myself like justifying all of my nuances to her. She's like, it's fine. Like, I'm here to help you. Like, um, well, I do this and I'm best in my mornings. So I try to hold space, but in my afternoons, because I have to go get my kids and I have to, their bus drops them off a half a mile from it. And she's like, okay, so no meetings in like, so no meetings then. I was like, yes. And it's just nice to not have to justify or
Mm-hmm.
explain, because I think so, especially for leaders, there's so many different factors at play. There's people that are counting on you. There's people that either report to you or need things from you, or that you have deliverables due to, or whatever it may be. And this person is, like you said, is like a ninja, and in strategically thinking about your time in a way that you don't have to explain it. You don't have to justify it. It's like, hey, I just need support, and they're like, got you, which is pretty great.
They're there to understand your preferences. And I always think of it like they're pointing the leader like an arrow. We know where you need to go. So let me clear away the noise and help you focus your attention and on your energy. So you shoot like an arrow where you need to go. That's
I love
powerful.
it. It's fantastic. Okay, so um, let's see. You've talked about how they can be a thought partner, which I think is so simple, but not always top of mind. So I think that that's really super important. Helping you see around corners and kind of anticipate things, especially as they get to know you and what your priorities are. Something else too, like an extra set of like eyes, extra set of ears, as things are kind of coming in. Tell me about how that works too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let me EAs, they interface with the world around you, right? Like they're there making sure people have what they need, people need things from you, and they're doing the back and forth there, they're doing the scheduling, and they are kind of trust centers. And so it can be one of the hardest parts of the job of an EA is navigating the trust that a lot of people place in you because you don't want to betray anybody's trust,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, this kind of general pulse check of how are people feeling on the team. They're going to be more open with an EA than they will be with you.
Right.
And it's so valuable. And a lot of times I don't get names or anything like that, but my assistant Debbie will come back and be like, here's an idea based on some of the feedback I've heard. Why don't we consider doing it this way instead of this way? Or there might be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of angst about this particular thing, stuff that I never would have known. And it's so valuable.
In a way that's super healthy for everybody. I mean, it's not gossipy or so and so said this. It's like you said, it's eyes and ears and a pulse check of like, things may not be the way that you think they are. So what if we did? And that's good for everyone. That's good for you. That's good for the team. That's good for your clients. It's good for the
It's
business
huge. Yeah.
for sure. Um, and okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the things that people would never think that you could delegate to an EA. And that, again, the other really important part of this is that they absolutely should. It's not like there's no pushing the limits. It's especially finding the right EA for you and your situation, things that I know I never would have imagined I could delegate. Like for me, I'm launching this show of mine and after the new year, and you found me someone who's not only like capable but like an expert in podcasting and is helping me set things up and get processes down and think of things that I haven't thought of before. And that's just my experience. So let's dig into some of the different things that people probably don't think that they can work with
Yeah,
an
absolutely. I
EA on.
mean, working with an EA is as you're learning, it's such a personal thing. And so there's at the center of it is expectation setting. And so if you are aligned on your expectations, and this is true of just human relationships, right? But it's so critical for the success of this relationship. If you're aligned on the expectations, then the sky is the limit of what that partnership can look like. So some of the things that Debbie does for me is meeting prep. It's so critical. I really enjoy being present and fully focused in the meeting, but I'm not great with names. And so I'll see something pop up on my calendar. I'm like, well, that does seem familiar. And she will then have a separate bit of context for me of like, you've spoken with this person 4 times. Here's what you talked about. Here's the feedback you had. Here's some personal bits that you picked up, LinkedIn, like all the things. And it's a game changer because it takes her a fair amount of time to do all of that. And I think we have some ideas of how we can speed that up through software. But in the meantime, it's not a small lift for her, but my gosh, is it critical for me to be able to show up fully prepared and remember those little details that I might not remember otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked last week about fundraising, right? And how important and what a game changer that could be. If you're fundraising, you're talking to hundreds of investors, and being able to come in and be on it, not only with your part of the pitch, but also who introduced you, what the thesis is of that fund, like what angle could possibly be a personal in. Like that's huge, and that's a full-time job if you're doing it on your own.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
huge. It's
Yeah.
so critical. And just being able to run the process of like, we know all of these things need to happen after that one meeting that's so critical. And most of it can be outsourced to your EA. It's
Mm-hmm.
life changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that I wouldn't have thought of. So, how about personal things, which I think, again, if I think of like Mad Men, when you're there in an office and it's kind of this outdated thing, but in this world where everything is remote, you're in Spain, I'm in Boston. I mean, like, and you have EAs all over the place that are helping with personal stuff. Like, what does that look
Yeah.
like?
No. Especially for women and for parents. And my husband carries a heavy load. Like he is here. So there's no shame thrown to him. But there's just a lot of stuff happening in my life, and it's often not my choice to be looped into it. Like the school only communicates with me, and
Mm-hmm.
like all the things like that. And she's been so helpful of figuring out getting visas to move here was a beast. Now figuring out, where do we go to the doctor, where do we get our hair cut, who's the dentist, what's even allowed in our insurance, all the things. Like we're celebrating, my family in town celebrating Thanksgiving. Where do you buy a turkey? Like the list is endless of stuff that we need help with. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't always have that in our relationship. It's something that's shifting. Not all EAs were always comfortable with it, but this is where you operate. This is the space that you live in, and being able to help with your whole world instead of just
Mm-hmm.
one side of your business, because we don't draw a line. Really, it's getting harder and harder to do that. But the impact that she's provided has been it's unbelievable since she started helping with that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we just moved from right around the time you were moving to Spain. My family was moving from Indiana to Boston, and same kind of things. Like, uh, ironically, today we finally have dentist appointments for the entire family because it took this long to figure that all out, and to just have somebody else helping you, being your thought partner, helping you like just work through all the lists and say like, hey, like this one maybe can wait a little bit longer while you're working on X, maybe I can work on Y. That
Yeah.
it's a huge game changer in just feeling like you're doing this thing. Like you're
Yeah.
just, yeah, you're
Keeping
not alone.
track of like, have my kids even had their annual checkups this year?
I
Some
know.
of them have. I don't know if all of them have. Like, she's on it. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it is. It's a lot to keep in your brain. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So why not have another brain helping you out?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about future proofing. What do you mean by future proofing? Something you mentioned before.
Yeah, this is a newer piece. I guess a newer opportunity. I think for assistants to really lean in. We are in the biggest technological revolution since the dot-com era. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is massive what we're seeing with the development of AI and the availability of amazing resources to us, and it's moving so fast that it's really hard to keep track of. So not only can an EA really help you figure out what's going on out there, what is the status, read research reports, can stay on top of things, synthesize it for you so you don't feel like you have to be watching and reading everything, but then also figuring out how does that apply to you personally, but also within your organization. What tools do we need to be using? What tools do we no longer need because we have this other one? What tasks can we get off the team's plate? And I think that the EAs of the future are going to become just better and better and better at this, of figuring out how can we keep the business and the person on the cutting edge of what's available to them. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
exciting.
Well, and you're right. I mean, to say that there's a lot is an understatement. But I think when somebody gets to know you your priorities, the way you work, the kind of work you do, it could be really helpful to have somebody say, sure, like there are all of these opportunities, but like here's one, or here's a vein of, I mean, even just AI, right? Let's just talk about AI. Is a category of AI tools that might be helpful in what you're trying to do. Here is, and of those, here are a couple that I'm going to try in the background. And one, once I find one that works for you and your goals or your calendar or the tasks you're trying to accomplish, I'll take it on and I'll teach you, or we'll work it into the process. I mean, that's massive. It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And this is a little bit adjacent to it, but also tool audits. Like it's so easy to get dozens and dozens and dozens of tools, even in a small startup, and spend thousands of dollars that we don't
Yeah.
need to on things. But a great EA can stay on top of that and make sure that you're only using what you need to use.
Yeah. We actually ran into that at Casted as we had a small team and a small tech stack, and then kind of like you look this other direction, and before you know it, you look back and no one has a single list. The team grows and you get to a certain point in size and speed and velocity, and this person has brought in this tool, and this person has brought in this, and it's free, so they were able to bring it in, but now it's kind of messing with this and it's interfering with that, and there's even just in slowed productivity because this person in this team is using this thing and this person in this team is using this thing, and those aren't talking to each other. So having
Yeah.
one single source of truth is huge.
It's huge. I think we talked about this last week too, but we're working on one of our reset products that'll actually be a cloud reset. So we'll be able to share more about that soon. But how many of us don't know where to find the things that we need, the information we need, and even like we're pretty streamlined between Slack and Notion and Google Drive, but that's still three places. And how are things named? And so
And
figuring
how
out
they're
a
used.
system.
Yeah. Naming
Yes,
conventions and
exactly.
org structure. Yeah. It's
All of
crazy.
it. And so the cloud reset is one that we're really excited about, that we can layer on top of the calendar reset and the inbox reset because it's a universal problem. We all struggle with
Mm-hmm.
this, and so why not get help?
Okay, and so since we're here live and we're about halfway through, and you mentioned resets, tell us about the base resets because I think that they are brilliant, and you have a special offer for people who join us for these fun sessions.
Yeah, so it's actually a base EA who came up with this idea. So many of us need an assistant, and maybe just the timing is not quite right, but you're still drowning in emails, calendar. And so we developed some tools that you don't need to have a long term commitment to work with base, but a base EA who is specifically trained to do this process will kind of helicopter into your inbox or your calendar, clean it up, automate it, and they're working with you to understand what's important, who's important, what do we not care about, and then set it up to run itself for inbox, and same thing for calendar, helping you understand how do you best spend your time, what do we need to protect, and then they just helicopter back out. So it's just a one-time thing, and it's the feedback is overwhelmingly positive. People are coming in, they're like, yeah, I was excited for this, but I didn't know it was like this. I didn't know you could do this with your calendar, or some direct quotes that we've actually gotten. And so, what
Mm-hmm.
we're offering now through the end of the year, if you buy any of our reset products, you get a free inbox reset or calendar reset to give to someone else, whomever you like. And it's a great gift. We have a lot bought for partners and spouses. So that's a really good one. But anybody on your team, friends. So we're really excited about this promotion.
Yeah. Your boss, your board members, like
Yeah.
seriously, super
Mhm.
affordable. And then also like if you go on and become a base subscription customer, or they go on, whoever you give it to goes on to become a longer term customer, you get all kinds of kickbacks and things like that. So
Yes, we
it's
like to be very generous with our thank yous for when, because we're a network business. We are referrals and word of mouth, and so we like to give back as much as we can. And kind of along those same lines, anybody who comes on with us as a base customer with an EA, you'll also get a free reset to give to whomever you like. So hopefully, we can just kind of spread the love.
fantastic. Okay, so we're going to share a link. It'll be everywhere. So watch for that. Okay, so getting back into some of the crazy things that you can delegate, but you never knew you could. Things, I mean, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but things around relationships and managing different relationships, and getting into like some of those thoughtful touches and just helping you stay more on it and ahead of things than feeling like you're constantly scrambling to just like show up to the meeting or like show up to the event. Um, what's the difference maker there as far as kind of helping
Yeah.
you maintain the people side of stuff?
We talked a little bit already about meeting prep and helping you understand what's the historical context here and why are we meeting right now. But there's a whole other level of relationship management. Relationships don't just exist on their own. They take work and they take investment and they take thought. And an EA can really help you kind of codify what that process looks like and how do you do that. So imagine you are traveling to a city, which of your clients are in that city, which LinkedIn connections are in that city, how are you connected with them, where should you be getting coffee and who should you be getting coffee with, when was the last time you spoke with them, and they can be really proactive in helping you for something like travel, but then just kind of on an ongoing basis. You want to meet with somebody interesting or new once a month and have a coffee. They can get on that and schedule you out for a long time or whatever it might be, whatever your personal goals are for relationships. An assistant can intake those goals, understand them, and then put a process behind them just to make them happen so you don't have to think about it.
I don't know about for you, but for me, that's one of those things that I know I need to do. Like anytime I did a ton of travel in 2023 and I was good at that, but I was not great, especially when it was like back to back weeks. Like before you know it, the first trip of 4, you're all booked up and you have tons of coffee meetings. And then you get to like 3 and 4 and you like, the plane lands, you have a couple hours, you go like end up working in a hotel room somewhere, you go to the lunch and you're like, this is just a bunch of wasted time. But you have somebody else who's not jet lagged, who's not, back to back flights, who is constantly like, okay, well, you're in New York this week, you're going to be in Dallas next week. Like, here are a couple people from your LinkedIn or from, that you've had conversations with that I already reached out to and like set up some meetings. Like, that's again, just it's efficiency, it's effectiveness, it's
Yep. And
optimization.
that's on top of already having your trip thoughtfully planned out. So you're not going to be zipping back and forth across town, and your hotel is going to be convenient, and you're going to have recommendations for where to go for dinner, and you're going to know how you're getting to and from the airport. And our base software is actually really good at that, of developing kind of travel digests for you. Here's everything you need to know, and here's your roadmap for your trip. And having that in hand when you go travel, it makes a huge difference, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I spend a lot of time on that. I feel like bad saying that, but I'm like, where do I want to sit on the plane? Is this the best flight? I don't know. Is this best time to book? Well, what about lunch? I don't know. I'll book lunch later. And then I spend a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
on travel.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So, let's like in some of the time that we have left, talk about like, I want to get into one thing and then I want to get into some of like the really crazy things that EAs can often do. But one thing that I think that people don't, at least I didn't really think of that often, is has to do with company culture, some of the HR culture, people side of things, like interviewing, hiring, onboarding, making sure that the performance reviews happen 1, 2, 4 times a year, however often it is. Like some of those things you already touched on, being able to be that facilitator of like, hey, I don't think that things are or that landed the way that you thought it did, or like, hey, things are going really well over here, we should do this again. But what does that kind of look like in managing and overseeing a culture, especially in the world of remote everything?
Yes. Yeah. It can be so valuable. I mean, we'll just take base as an example, but the performance reviews, which my team knows this, like the structure of it is really hard for me. And so if someone was not there, making sure that it was happening and putting all the pieces in place and making it, blocking my time to say, you need to write your reviews right now. Um, they wouldn't happen. They just wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
happen. And we all have those things that we're just not very good at or we don't like to do. And so, like, whatever that might be, an EA can take that for you. This just happens to be mine.
Mm-hmm.
But then the onboarding, think about the difference when you've started at a company and you've had a really great, smooth, thoughtful onboarding. And then times when you've shown up, which has happened to me, they forgot I was coming. I didn't have a desk or a computer for a couple of days. It's like, well, I feel great about this decision to move to this new
Yeah.
city and start this job.
Uh-huh.
And it makes all the difference in the world to be able to like truly welcome somebody in a way that is thoughtful, makes them feel seen and valued, and then is also in line with the values and all the things that we do as founders. and leaders to be like, this is what we want to embody, this is what we care about. And EA can actually systematize that to make sure that you are actually embodying them, and it's providing some checks and balances. And then they're just kind of all the operational pieces that they can help interview, they can help research candidates, they can help just run the whole thing, depending on the role. Yeah,
Yeah,
tons.
well, I think when you have a team, um, it is so tough. I was trying to think of a better word than tough, but like it's so tough because you I know for myself and other teams that I've been on, you have such high expectations of yourself, right? Of like the vision that you have for it, and the experience that you want your team to have, and um, the culture that you want to embody, and how you want to nurture those relationships, and what you want it to feel like to be a member of your team. That's if you're a founder in particular, I have not met a founder that's not super 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 important to them, like
Mm-hmm.
because this company that you've built is so important to you, and you know that the people are what makes it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there are so many other things pulling at you in a way that I don't think most people understand. So even though the team and the culture and the work experience and the employer brand and all of that is hugely important, everything else like revenue and board management and investor relationships are have to be often feel like they have to be more important, because if those don't
Mm-hmm.
happen and those are uniquely on your plate, then none of this other stuff for the team can happen. And so
Mm-hmm.
having someone there to support you in, just like you said, carrying out your vision for what you want that team culture, atmosphere, experience to be, that is such a godsend of just having somebody be able to have your back and be like, hey, um, it's time for our quarterly. We want to get the team together once a quarter. Here are some things that fit within our budget. I already surveyed the team on which things would be, of interest, or just constantly thinking about it and truly being an extension of your brain to make sure that that experience that is so important to us is actually
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Yeah. And we know the analogy of the big rocks and the small rocks and the team culture and all the internal operations. It's a big rock, but it's really long and thin.
Yeah.
And then as a founder, you've got a bunch of big rocks that are time sensitive and they're
Yes.
financially sensitive, and they're both equally important. But you've got to go chip away at those big rocks right in front of you. But it doesn't make those other ones less important. And I
No.
think that's where an EA can just keep you honest, keep you,
Yeah.
hold you to the values. It's a great accountability partner, but also just make sure the wheels are still moving on that critical piece that you can't always devote all of your attention to.
Yes. 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 Okay. So I want to get into some of the crazy things that aren't so crazy. That I think even just putting them out there, like I'm looking at the list of things that you wrote over here that I love, because again, some of it is just giving us all permission to ask for help on some of these things. One that I want to call attention to is wardrobe curation.
Yes.
Okay, because that's important. Like I go speak, and I never feel like I have anything to wear. I am the mom of three boys. For the last few years, so are you. I've been working at home, and then I go get on a stage, and I want to, yeah, sure, I want to look good, but like I want to feel confident, and I want to feel good. And then after that, I have a meeting, and then there's a dinner, and like it can feel so. I don't think that I'm alone here, and that you start to spiral, and it's like you start to spend way too much time thinking about what the heck you're going to wear for this
Way
one
too much
thing. But
time.
it's really important because it's how you show up and it's how you feel.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, so I relate to that deeply, but I think also as a woman, I feel like the stakes are higher. I think
Yeah, you can't
judged.
just throw on a suit and a tie, and it's yeah.
Yeah, and men have way fewer options too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you pick blue or black or gray, and
Right.
different combination of shirt and pants. But we have so many options, and I think there are so many subtle things that we communicate. And so, being aware of the event that you're going to, or whatever the experience is, and what the context is, and kind of what your personal style is. Yeah, your EA can curate that for you, and then do all the research, because I have spent way too much time as well trying to figure out
Yeah.
what am I going to wear? What do I need to buy? When, of course, I already have plenty of things. But I always thought of that one as like a celebrity, someone who had a personal assistant following them around. But it doesn't have to be. There's so many direct to consumer, custom made things that you can buy that, and capsule wardrobes are so much easier, I think, to build. That yeah, your EA can do all that for you.
And that can look like a lot of things. I mean, that could look like shopping and buying and purchasing and styling. And it could also be, hey, Lindsay, just a reminder, you have a talk coming up in 30 days. I blocked time on your calendar 1 week out to have that moment where you spend 2 hours in your bedroom trying on all of your clothes, like so that you're doing it a week before, not the night before. Like
Yeah,
those are two very different extremes, but
yeah,
both are really important and both have the end result of feeling more confident when you do show up for those things and you're not thinking about what you're wearing, you're thinking about everything else.
yes. And here's your packing list because every time you travel, 90% of the things are the same. So
Yes.
here's what you bring. Here are those things you forgot last time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, so wardrobe curation, permission to get help. We deserve it. Handwriting thank you notes and like remembering to go back and say thank you and acknowledge, things that happened.
Yes. So I wish I could take credit for this idea, but it is possible for us to learn one another's handwriting. And you can still quickly type out a note, but you can also solicit the help of your EA to use your handwriting and write a handwritten note, which just takes longer. And I don't actually put pen to paper very much anymore. And so my handwriting doesn't always look as good as it could. But yes, that's a really, really great one to just as part of that kind of personal CRM management that we were talking about, but also professional that you can outsource and still have it be really personal and authentic.
Yeah, and that's again one of those things that can look like whatever works for you. It can be a hey reminder, I blocked time on your calendar to write these notes, or it can be I wrote these for you, depending on what works for you. I think that
Yeah.
that's something again that just kind of ends up not happening, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
Let's talk about pets, the animals in your life.
Yes. I have heard some really amazing stories. So it could be anywhere from just kind of making sure you have everything you need for your pet, and it could include the vet appointments, but it's also when you travel, where do they need to go, and who are they staying with, and all the pet logistics that come with having a pet. So many. But then I've heard stories of at certain board meetings, certain board members would bring their selection of dogs. They would bring some of the dogs, and each dog had different preferences. And so the EA was in charge of making sure each pet had their, I don't even know what it was, specific food, maybe specific bed. So, yes, like another example where there's this full spectrum of support that you can get to make sure that your pets have what they need.
Yeah, anything from super duper personalized and pet preferences, all the way to just like, hey, I set up your right monthly Chewy order so that you don't have to worry about getting food and supplies. So
Mhm.
okay to ask for help. Here's a fun one: family tree research. Tell me more.
Mhm. Yes, and so we have this happening in my family right now, where my mom and her siblings are able to apply for French citizenship because where their father was born, and my gosh, the records that they have to find and track down, handwritten birth certificates and letters from military, I don't even know, but it's really, really complicated. And they do not have an assistant doing that for them. But that is something that you can outsource, is just trying to figure out what does your lineage look like? How do we document it? And that kind of ties into an assistant can really help make sure that whatever legacy you desire for you, your family, your business, they can help make sure the documentation is happening along the
Mm-hmm.
way. How many people have boxes full of photos printed? That
Oh
can
my
be
gosh.
part of it. Yes. So just kind of like life optimization and making sure that your history is researched and documented are all really great, but also kind of not obvious tasks for an assistant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Medical liaison, wellness optimizer. Um, that health is something that you and I share, that it's really important to us, and we're like constantly like trying to do better and be healthier and feel better. But how can somebody else help you with that?
On a basic level, it could look like making sure you have time on your calendar to do the things that you know make you a healthier person. And that's step number one. But there are so many more levels to it, of making sure that that blood work that you want to run quarterly is happening. And maybe your vitamin D levels are really low, which mine were, and I'm in the sun all the time and it's crazy. But like making sure that my vitamin D supplements are coming, and maybe you're working with a nutritionist or scheduling the doctor's appointments. But there are so many pieces of our personal health and wellness that are out there floating around, and many of them are kind of ephemeral, hard to keep track of, and an EA can help you do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think there's there's a lot to be said for. I think one of the recurring themes, kind of in the background, is accountability, and I think that there is something to be said for having an actual human being who knows whether or not you're doing something. I mean, it's one thing to block time on your calendar. Do you know how long I have had go for a walk blocked on my calendar? Years, years. And it's like a newsletter that I just ignore every single day. And I go for a walk not because I have that blocked on my calendar, but because I just happen to do it that day. Because my calendar doesn't know and isn't actually asking me if I'm going, but an actual human being who says like, "Hey, how many times did you walk this week? Cool. How
Mm-hmm.
can I help? Like, can I text you and be like, Lindsay, get out of your chair and go for a walk?" Um, it's little things like that. That did you schedule that appointment? Did you take your vitamin D
Yeah.
this morning? Just someone checking on you, just with your best interest
Mm-hmm.
in mind, because you want to be reminded. That it
Yeah.
makes a difference.
I was recently talking to a leader the other day who has a powerhouse assistant. They've been working together for a long time, and we were asking him, like, what's the main benefit? Like, why is this such a successful relationship? And he said, because I believe she, AirPods falling out, I believe she really cares for me and she's in my corner. And that, it hit me really deep because it perfectly summarizes something that I understood but hadn't put those words to. Your assistant, a great assistant relationship, they care for you and they want to see you achieve your goals. They're there to help you do that. And it can be this really beautiful symbiotic relationship. So yes, I'm ashamed to say how many times I've had to put blocks on my calendar to remind me to eat lunch, which is something that
Yeah.
I frequently forget to do. But it's because of the ripple effects that happen if I don't eat food. And I know that the assistant actually cares whether or not I eat, and I don't want to disappoint her either.
Yeah. And it seems it's one of those like simple concept. It's not that hard to get around, but like actually take a second and think about how many other people in your life care about you that way. Now, hopefully we all have lots of people. Like you and I both talked about, like, we have great husbands who are great dads. We both have 3 boys. They love us very much. They all love us very much. None of them is thinking today about whether or not I ate lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's a different kind of care and support. It's like that's what they're there to do, is help you
Mm-hmm.
do your best and be your best and achieve your goals and hold you accountable. Everyone else in my life cares about me in a different way. And honestly, especially, obviously not exclusively, but like especially as women, especially as moms, we're showing up as leaders for our teams, as as leaders for our customers, as parents to our children, as great partners to our partners, and quite often it you don't get that in return. You get a lot of love, you get a lot of care, you get a lot of support, but it's not that like, how are you taking care of you? Even
Right.
friends, like we're all kind of taking care of each other, but like this level of support that's like, hey, did you take your vitamins today? Who
Right.
else is doing that for
Yeah.
you? You know?
I think there's a lot of benefit too, that it's a commercial relationship. It's a professional relationship. There
Yeah.
is an exchange of resources there, which kind of gives you permission to be thought of and taken care of in that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's been really helpful for me because I don't um, ask for help very easily in my personal life. But
Yeah.
oh boy, I am so happy to ask for help from my assistant. And so that like kind of professional dynamic has been freeing in a way where
Mm-hmm.
originally I might have thought that that made it more awkward, but instead I
Yeah.
think it's pretty freeing.
I think so too. And one of the things we're going to talk about, I think next week, is optimizing. No, next week we're talking about how to find your right EA, but after that,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about optimizing your relationship. And I think that's one of the things where it's okay, cool. If you don't explore the different opportunities for delegation and for maximizing the relationship, you're going to default to the things like calendar management and inbox management, which may or may not be helpful, but you're not really optimizing the relationship, which is when you get frustrated, they feel underutilized. Like it's it's these things that
Mm-hmm.
make all the difference.
Yeah, it all comes back to expectation setting. Almost every time, and we see kind of that either just kind of okay relationship or we see the dysfunctional ones, and it's pretty much always trace it back to misaligned expectations and just not being clear and candid with one another.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So asking, like, the more you ask for help, actually, probably the better it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I want to go back to this list. Celebrity outreach. Excuse me very much. What does that mean?
Yes, I think of the that scene in Devil Wears Prada where she had to get the next Harry Potter book for her kids before it was released and it even finished. And that's an extreme example, of course, but think about trying to coordinate a singer for someone famous for a party or a work event or a promotion that you're running, or maybe you need speakers at your event. An assistant is a great option to use because of kind of the back channels that they can have access to and can get to pretty remarkable places.
Hmm. Good to know. Okay, and then lastly, which I think we've maybe talked about this a little bit, but like a legacy manager. What do you mean by
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, it could be anywhere from just making sure that the pieces of your life are documented the way that you want them to. It could be scanning those photos. It could be making sure that you're getting the recipes from your family, doing the family tree research that we talked about. But then it goes into maybe you have a family trust, maybe you have a family office, and you are very involved with philanthropy, and you want to make sure kind of the pieces. And I didn't put this on there because I don't love the term personal brand, but kind of understanding how are you putting yourself out there into the world and how will that impact your legacy. And assistant, that's just another part of understanding your goals and where you want to go. That can be so valuable.
Yeah, so important. Okay, so in summary, there are so many things beyond that outdated thought that we have when a lot of us think about EAs. Um, and it can really be whole career, whole business, whole team, whole life support. And one of the things that I love about Base is that there is no one size fits all. It's not, hey, this is the person that is going to be helping you. Good luck. There's a lot of care and curation and careful thought put into how you're matching people up. Again, I've said it many times, but one of the areas that I knew I needed help, at least to start, was in this podcast and show I'm putting together and some marketing support. Like, I know what I want to do, but I need more of me. And so you found me someone with even like expertise in that area, that I'm going to learn from, who is already helping me think differently about what I know pretty well. That's not one size fits all. And so if you're getting into some of these things, from celebrity outreach to legacy management to personal brand to financial brand or financial assistance, or your company culture, like, you need someone that has expertise or interest or background in one of those areas if they're going to really hold you accountable and help you level up in those ways.
Yeah, compliment you. I say this all the time, but if you are a leader of any sort and you don't have an assistant, you're not working with an assistant, you are an assistant, because those things still have to happen and they just fall on your plate on top of all the other things that you're building. But it doesn't have to be a ton of help. We talked about this last week. You can start small. We can find you the right assistant. We take a lot of time. We invite all of our assistants to apply to our talent pool, and then we hand select a selection of them for everybody who comes in so that you really find that right fit for you. And it's critical because when you find that right fit, you don't need someone full-time offshore that you then also have to manage. You need really, really focused, powerful support from someone who complements your strengths and your weaknesses. And that's what we exist to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right. So where can everybody find more information about BASE? And
Yes.
then we can also tell them about this, again, about the offer for everybody listening.
We'll post our links everywhere, but basehq.com has everything that you need. You can actually even put your email in there, and we will show you immediately available assistants who we collect a small about like kind of your needs and things like that, and we will show you immediately some assistants who could be potential matches for you. These are real people who have availability, and you can see them instantly. And it's really cool. It's a new tool that we just rolled out, but you can understand the services that we offer, understand how much time you're spending on all of these tasks, being your own assistant, and also get more ideas for how to work with an assistant, all at basehq.com.
Yeah, and get in on the BASE reset, either for your inbox or your calendar, or soon to come the cloud. For $750, there's a buy one get one free. You can get one for yourself and just kind of test the waters, and you can also give one to someone else. To me, it's a no-brainer. So you can find more information on that as well. So, all right. Thank you, Paige, both for this and for helping me get my life together. And we're going to do this again next week as we talk about, cool, all right, but like, how do I find the right EA for me? So next Monday, 10 a.m. And until then, thanks, Paige.
Thank you. Bye.